So I'm not bragging or nothing, but this is going to be the absolute best video you've ever seen on how to find speaking gigs. So maybe I am bragging a little bit, but it's true. It's going to be the best video on how to find speaking gigs. And I'm going to get into that in just a second. But first I want to talk about what I did that allowed me to get hired consistently, because I mean, for the longest, I had the problem of, okay, I got all this stuff, and I got a website, got some video footage, but I wasn't getting hired consistently. And the reason was because I didn't invest. And I know a lot of people say, oh, he's talking about investing because he wants me to buy a program or whatever. But it's true. If you do not invest, you will not build. You will not grow. So I invested back into my speaking business by doing things like buying a CRM, just 25 bucks a month. It amazes me that speakers won't spend any money on their speaking business, but they expect to get on stages. So if you want to get hired consistently, you got to invest, and more specifically, invest in systems. But let's just get on to it. I'm gonna tell you the different ways to find speaking gigs. One of the problems that I had was I always got bad advice in terms of how to find speaking gigs. In fact, if you go to Google right now and you type in how to find speaking gigs, here's the advice that you would get. In fact, I wrote this down. The advice, number 1, write a book. 2, have a good video. 3, get a hook. Basically, why are you different? 4, join Toastmasters. 5, talk to the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, that's the type of advice that's really bad advice in terms of how to find speaking gigs. And the reason why it's bad is because it sounds good. I mean, writing a book sounds great. Okay, cool. Write a book. But the problem is, not all books become a Tim Ferriss book and, oh, now you're all of a sudden popular and you get on all kinds of stages. Or join Toastmasters. Okay, I joined Toastmasters, but so what? I'm in Toastmasters. That doesn't mean I'm going to find gigs and get on stages. Or have a good video. Okay, I have 20 great videos, but that doesn't mean you can find events. So the problem with advice like this, when I was reading this stuff, is it sounded good, but it didn't give you specifics. And this is why I tell so many speakers in all these videos that the way you can tell someone knows their stuff and someone is actually doing what they teach is they can give you specifics. They can give you the full process on what they do. So I'm going to tell you the process. I'm going to tell you the specifics. And like I said, by the time, I'm bragging right now because this is hands down the best video you will ever see on how to find speaking gigs. So first off, I want to start out with, you got to ask better questions, because speakers will ask, how do I find speaking gigs? When the question they should ask is more specific. Something like, how do I find, or how do I speak at a TEDx event? Something like that is more specific. And once you get more specific, you know exactly what to do. Because saying, how do I find speaking gigs? Okay, that's too broad. Saying, I want to speak at TEDx or just TED in general, now you know, okay, let me go to TED.com, let me look things up, and now it's a lot easier. So the first thing is you got to ask better questions. The second thing, and this is something that it's hard to teach because it is a state of mind type of thing. In fact, just finding events is a state of mind. Even though I'm going to list like 20 different ways coming up, finding events is where you have to be like an event hound, where you're constantly just on the lookout for events. I mean, you nonstop, everywhere you go, you just naturally look for events. And I guarantee you will find them. And it is a state of mind. It's the hardest thing to teach. So let me just go into the other ones. So the next one is a meeting planner magazine. Something like Meetingsnet, BizBash. These are meeting planner magazines that you should be reading. I mean, you're a speaker, but you should be reading these magazines, because when you do, you'll see names of people like Jane Doe, she planned XYZ event. You'll see names of people, you'll see events in there, and these are events that you can put into a CRM. So read meeting planner magazines, because on one page you'll see all kinds of information that you can use for prospecting and to find more gigs. Other thing are Facebook hashtags. You can go to Facebook, type in hashtag event profs, hashtag conference, hashtag annual conference, and things will pop up, and you'll see the names of these conferences. You'll see Alaska sales conference or whatever. So you can do that on Facebook. You can do it on Twitter. Twitter is even better. I mean, I personally like Twitter, and I use Twitter for searching. To me, Twitter is like the new Google for searching when it comes to events. So you simply type in hashtags like event profs, and by the way, this is also something really cool you can do on Twitter. You type in hashtag and then just type in like 3 or 4 letters, just random letters like TSI and then 2016 or whatever year it is. Because think about, what do people do when they're at events? When people are at events, and let's say the event name is Trade Show International. That's the event name. Instead of typing all that into Twitter, Trade Show International 2016, people type in the initials. They type in hashtag TSI 2016. So by doing this, you essentially type in hashtag random letters, 2016 or whatever year, and you'll see people post about these events. And I mean, sometimes you'll hit something, sometimes you won't, but basically this is another way to find the event. Another way, of course, is Instagram. You go to Instagram, use hashtags, annual conference, sales conference, and you'll see pictures of these events. And the cool thing about the pictures is you actually get to see what the event is like. So if you type in hashtag annual conference and you see an event where there's only 20 people there, you might say, well, no, that's not the event for me. But if you see an award banquet and there's 500 people there, you say, okay, that's the exact event for me. So hashtags on Twitter is perfect. I mean, on Instagram is perfect. Twitter too. Do a LinkedIn search. Search for meeting planners on LinkedIn, and you'll see all kinds of meeting planners on LinkedIn, and you can type these people into your CRM for prospecting. Associations is another way. Go to asae.org and look for the directory of associations. You'll see hundreds, thousands of associations, and now you can put them into your CRM and contact them little by little, or a lot by a lot. It's up to you. Also, when you're at a hotel, you don't have to even be speaking there. You can just go to a hotel right now. You go to a hotel, and hotels always have a list of events that are going on for the day. And you can take a picture of this list. I do this all the time when I'm speaking at an event, when I'm not at an event. I always take a picture of the list of events, because you know that these people obviously have events and they probably have speakers. They're doing something to provide the experience at the event. So when you take a picture, you say, okay, this event, AEE, they have a cocktail, they have an award banquet, they have this, a keynote session. You say, okay, well, perfect. I'm going to look them up later on. So take a picture of the events that are going on at the hotels. If you're a college speaker, you can simply go to NACA, N-A-C-A, or APCA, A-P-C-A. NACA is the biggest one. This is where you can literally fill up your entire schedule in one day, literally one day, because this is the basics of NACA and the APCA is where they pretty much come to this event and they're looking for people to hire. You have all the people there who could hire you, and it's perfect if you want to get into colleges. If you don't want to go there, because you do have to pay for it, by the way, if you don't want to go there, you can simply call campus activities. Just look up a college, call campus activities, and those are the people who are going to hire you. You can use Google Alerts or TalkWalker. Basically, Google Alerts, you simply type in like, type it in quotes, by the way, but type in like annual conference, Las Vegas conference, annual sales meeting, things like that. And what this would do is it'll send you emails of these events that are going on. The way for this to work is for you to know what events hire you. So I know that I get hired by a lot of award banquets, so I type in, I've hashed or quotes award banquets, and I know that when it sends me an email, I can use this for prospecting. And obviously there's still Google search. You can use Google in order to find events. Type in sales conference and all these other things on Google. One of the best things on Google, and this is something that I've kept to myself for a long time, and I'm just now talking about it, is if you go to Google and you type in, let's say, annual conference, then all this stuff will pop up. But go click on the images tab and you'll see all the images for the conferences. And when you click on the image, then you'll see the name of the conference, and it also have the link to that event. And what's cool about this is you get to see the conference. You get to see what it's like before you contact them. So you can see if you type in sales conference, you can see, oh wow, there's about 2,000 people in this room, and okay, here's the link. So use Google Images when you're typing in these search terms like sales conference. DMCs is another good way. This stands for Destination Management Companies. DMCs are kind of like speaker bureaus, but DMCs, if you connect with them, or if you just look them up on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram, if you just look them up, you can see what events they're posting about, what events they're talking about. So you can connect with them, the people who work for them, and also see what they're posting as well. You can also crash events, and what I mean by crashing events is when you're speaking at an event, or you don't have to be speaking at an event, you can just go to a hotel, you look at the list of events that are going on for that day, and you walk into the event. And you walk in, if there's people just sitting there, just kind of doing a registration, you talk to them first. You say like, hey, how's it going? What event is this? And you're like, oh, this is the annual sales conference for so-and-so. You're like, oh, wow, really? Like, what do you guys do? And oh, we do sales, dummy. But you start talking to them, and then eventually you say, oh, well, that's cool. I'm a sales speaker, actually. Who's in charge of this event? Can I talk to them real quick? And you just talk to them right there and then. The benefit of what I can do is that I can do mind reading for them right there and then, so I can demonstrate something. If you can demonstrate something, let's say you're like a memory expert, you can demonstrate that. Let's say you tell jokes, you can tell a funny joke or whatever. If you can demonstrate something right there and then, you've proven your value to them instantly, and they say, oh man, this person would be good to bring in. So when you crash events, that's really cool because you get that one-on-one interaction. They get to see what you're like in person. So crashing events, I mean, sure, it's kind of ballsy, but just think of it as like a better version of networking. Another way is thinking in terms of multiple company events. A lot of companies, like sales organizations especially, they have multiple regions across the country, across the world. So something like Aflac, where they hired me for one event, then they hired me for multiple events because they have multiple regions all across the world. Real estate companies like Remax, Keller Williams, they have multiple regions. MLM companies, they have multiple regions. So when you contact these people, and let's say you get hired for one of them, make sure you stay in touch because you can get hired for other events as well. And you also want to use other speakers' successes. So if you look at another speaker, and let's say you hear about speaker John Doe, and he posts somewhere online, then you can look at what event he posted about. If he says, oh, I'm speaking at the annual sales conference for XYZ, you're like, okay, cool, I can contact them for next year. So use other speakers' successes, because in the corporate world, and almost when it comes to hiring speakers in general, very rarely do companies or people hire speakers the next year. And it's not because the speaker wasn't good, it's because they just need something different. And I don't care what speaker tells you this. I know a lot of speakers say, oh, well, if you didn't get hired consistently for the past 10 years and you didn't do a good job. That's not how it works. In the corporate world, the way it works is that they say, oh, he was great, but we don't want to bring him in next year because we want to do something different. This is why someone who's the most amazing speaker in the world will not get hired for next year. So when you're looking at other speakers, look at what they're doing this year so you can contact people for next year. You also want to use e-speakers and all these speaker directories, not in terms of you joining that. Don't join it. Instead, look at other speakers who are using it. Look at their speaking fee. Let's say a 10, 15 grand speaking fee speaker. Go to their page and look at the reviews. Now, what's going to happen is when you go on the reviews, you're going to see a review by Jane Doe or whoever. You're going to say, this speaker was amazing, the greatest speaker in the world. And then it's going to have the name of the company, Aviation Narcotics or whatever. So it's going to have the name of the company. Now you know, what does this tell you? It tells you that they hire speakers. It tells you they hire speakers for 10 to 15 grand because you clicked on a 10 to 15 grand speaker on eSpeakers or wherever the directory you're on. So you know all this information. So now you contact this person for next year to hire you. You also want to think in terms of entertainers as well. So did someone bring in an entertainment group last year or the year before, or are they used to entertainers? Because all you have to think of is, does this company hire people? Do they bring people in? Because as a speaker, you are there to create an experience. So If they hired Cirque du Soleil last year, not only do you know they have a good budget, but you also know that they're looking for the experience. So when you say, oh, I'm a speaker, I'm a funny motivational speaker, they're going to say, oh cool, this is something different this year, and he's going to have everybody laughing. So look at other entertainers as well. You don't have to think just in terms of speakers. Kind of think in terms of like cross channels, because someone who hires entertainment, they also hire speakers. And then you want to look at trade shows. So if you go to tsnn.com, this is the website for all trade shows. The good thing about trade shows is, sure, you're not going to speak at a trade show. You're not going to be in front of someone's booth and like speaking at the trade show. But what you need to understand is that these companies spend money just on marketing, and they just spend money in general. So you're looking for companies that are actually spending money that can afford you. So you see all these events, and especially on TSNN, they constantly talk about just events in general, not just trade shows. So look for the companies that they talk about on their newsletter. Just go to TSNN, look for events that they talk about, and contact these people. And also, you can get more specific. So don't just type in sales convention or sales conference. You want to type in Alaska sales conference, LA sales conference, Miami sales conference, and you can go on and on. I mean, Alaska annual conference, Alaska annual meeting. You can go on and on. The thing is, you have to think in terms of just being more specific. Knowing all of this, I mean, these aren't even all the ways. I talk about even more ways in the Speak Pro Academy, but knowing all of this, you have to make sure that you put everything into a system. Because if there's one thing that I see speakers make, the mistake speakers make, is that they say, oh, I know that, or they learn it by watching something like this, and then they don't do anything with it, because they wake up, they'll wake up in the morning, it's kind of like, oh, what do I do now? Well, wonder what I should do today. On the other hand, if you have a system on how you're going to find the events, then how you're going to contact the events, and how it flows with your CRM and everything, then you're going to be able to get more gigs. But that's just a list of ways to find events. Now in the next video, I'm going to talk about putting it all together into a system.